Luxury used to mean a certain chandelier or a certain type of sheets, but luxury today is all about experience. It's about personalization. It's about, even again, it comes back to relationships.
Hello, my name is Renae Leith-Manos. Welcome to this podcast, Where to From Here, featuring conversations about luxury travel and how it's changing in every pocket of the globe. Today, I'm talking with one of my favourite people in the luxury hotel industry, Gaynor Reid. Gaynor is an Australian and spent the last 20 years working in Singapore and working for Accor, which of course has some of the most aspirational luxury hotel brands in the world. They include brands like Raffles, Sofitel, the Fairmont, and some of the properties within those portfolios are absolutely incredible. I'm so excited to tell you that Gaynor's opened her own business, Catalyst Communications, and would you believe two of her first clients were billionaire Michael Cannon Brooks and singer Katy Perry. I am sure she has so many stories to tell us. Welcome, Gaynor.
Thank you, Renae. Thank you for having me. Wow, you certainly made me sound pretty good.
Well, you are so fabulous. But look, let's start at the beginning of your journey. Yeah. And what was the attraction to working in five-star hotels or even just hotels in general?
Well, look, I think for me, obviously born in South Africa to Scottish parents, and I've lived in Australia and in Asia and in the UK, it was the chance to get someone to pay me to travel, basically. So I started as a journalist, which was great. And the thing I loved most about journalism was actually that opportunity to travel. And then after that, I went to a project called Welcome the World with the Sydney 2000 Olympics. And that was all about working with retailers, with hotels, with Sydney-siders to make sure they were ready to welcome international visitors. And through that project, I worked with a lot with hotels, and I thought, oh, this is quite a nice world. So when I saw the ad for the job with Accor, it was a dream come true for me to actually think I had the opportunity to travel the world and someone would pay me to do so and stay in lovely hotels.
And was that job based in Singapore from the get-go?
No, actually, I started in Sydney. You said I was in Singapore for 20 years, but I was actually in Singapore for 10.
Okay.
So I started in Sydney, worked in the Sydney office for 10 years, and then was given the opportunity to work in Singapore. And as someone who'd already lived overseas and was born overseas, I wanted to give that opportunity to my daughter as well, to live that expat life, which as well, is a very privileged life, but a very exciting and eye-opening way to live.
Absolutely wonderful. And so what changes have you seen in the industry? I mean, particularly lately, right?
So many changes. I think when I started, and coming from a journalism background, it was so easy to get stories placed in the media. There were travel sections were really big. If I sent a press release, someone would run the story. It was as easy as that. Yes. And obviously now there's a much clearer link between advertising and support for publications. There's smaller staffs. There's smaller sections for travel. A lot of magazines have gone down over COVID. So it's harder to get your stories through. It's all about relationships, I think. And then from the perspective of hotels have gone from, luxury used to mean a certain chandelier or a certain type of sheets. But luxury today is all about experience. It's about personalization. It's about, even again, it comes back to relationships. So I think everything that I do in terms of public relations and in media is about those relationships. And it's about hotels building those relationships with their guests and offering them experiences they can't get anywhere else.
And is the objective today of the luxury hotel the repeat guest, as you're saying, to build up that relationship so that they just keep coming back again and again?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, your best guest is your repeat guest. It's someone who comes as a guest and ends up being family. But you can't just rely on that. Obviously, you need to have new guests coming through as well. So it's about understanding your market and how you target each guest. And whether it's your first visit or your 50th visit, how do you make that guest feel special? And how do you recognize them and acknowledge them and learn to understand their preferences and make sure that you're delivering an experience they can't get anywhere else?
Yes, that's the challenge, isn't it? And look, it's interesting because I actually consult to a number of luxury hotels and we're just seeing the influence of social media, even on the most expensive hotels in the world, is so strong to the point where now hotels are having to take care what they publish, because if they publish, a beautiful room with a certain cake sitting there, and someone turns up and they can't offer that cake because it has berries that are not in season, for example, the guest gets really upset. So just talk me through how social media works now, in terms of promoting hotels, in terms of, journalism and traditional media.
Well, look, it's interesting what's happening now, because there are some hotels, I think for pre-COVID years, it was all about the influencer and bringing that influencer in and almost curating or staging an experience that the guest might not necessarily get. Right?
Yes.
It'd be you in the bubble bath with your champagne and the bath bubble with the flower petals.
Yes.
To me now, it's about real experiences. So we shouldn't promise something that you can't deliver to your average guest. We shouldn't create experiences for an influencer or a celebrity or whomever it is that you can't give to someone who just rocks up and stays there. So
sounds so obvious when you say it out loud, but you're right. Pre-COVID, we were doing all these crazy things and bringing in all these accessories, even plates. Some hotels have gold plates that they never use.
I've seen crazy things. And I always say to the hotels I work with, there's no point delivering a media experience if you can't deliver it to your guests. So if you were to
100%.
write something about an experience and someone turns up and they can't get it, you've already failed them. You've already disappointed them. Social media is great in a lot of ways. You can research your guests before they get there. You can Google, if you have the time, obviously, and find out what their preferences are, what they like, and you can deliver that, and obviously working in hotels, I've had amazing experiences where, for example, at the Sofitel, in Auckland, I turned up and they had put a photo of my daughter and I by the bedside because I commented about how much I missed her. And then they gave us a kiwi necklace for each of us, which had meaning about family. And that sort of thing makes you
I'm getting shivers.
because, that makes you cry because they understand who you are. And I think all of us, we're looking for connection. We're looking for someone to understand who we are. And if you can get that at a hotel, if you turn up to a hotel and they say, Renae, I know you love XYZ, and so I've put a little touch of that in your room, then you're winning straight away. But it's also, for me, it's about delivering a local experience. I want, when you travel for work, you often, we talked earlier about going to India. When you travel to India, like I used to do, I used to go to a hotel, have some meetings, barely see anything of the city. So what I want a hotel to deliver is, what are the local dishes of that destination? What is the culture about? Can I experience that in the hotel if I don't have the chance to, hopefully you do have the chance to go outside. But if you don't, how can the hotel give you local flavors, local culture, a local taste and flavor of the destination? Because that to me is real luxury.
That's a really good point, because I know that a lot of hotels are now seeing generational travel where, groups of families with the grandparents right down to the grandkids are all coming into various rooms, having longer stays because they're really having that family connection. And there's certain people within that group, particularly the older guests perhaps, that don't want to leave the hotel at all. So it's really relevant, because if you are in a foreign place, you do want to try the food, whether you leave the hotel or not.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And tell us, can you share any celebrity stories? I mean, are they really as demanding as we read sometimes?
Look, I think you'd be surprised at how like the rest of us celebrities are. We've had many guests that stay in our hotels, and often you can't talk about it because they don't want you to know that they stay at that particular property. But I think most of us at the end of the day are very similar. We've got the same tastes and desires, and that is to feel connected. We all love family. Anytime you can connect with someone through your family, it's a one question you can ask anybody. And that doesn't mean children, just family. Tell me about your family. When you get people talking about family, there's always a connection. There's always a moment where you can transcend boundaries, cultures, race, religion, all the rest of it. I haven't come across too many celebrities that are very demanding. And we've had things like at the Sofitel Sentosa Resort, for example, we've had Robbie Williams stay, we've had Chris Martin stay, J-Lo, and both Robbie and Chris, for example, went to, there's a bar there in the middle of the hotel with a piano in it. And after playing at the Grand Prix, they both went to that piano and just played for whomever was there. And, just imagine as a fan of one of these men, just seeing them in the middle of an open space playing a piano, or at the Sofitel Hotel in Harbour. There's really interesting stories with celebrities. And again, I shouldn't talk too much.
That's right.
But for example, you say
we won't tell anyone. We won't tell anyone.
But you know, the French president stayed at the Sofitel. And what you might not know is that he travels with a bodyguard body double who dresses exactly as he does. And
body double.
Private entrance where Macron can enter the hotel in complete safety, and his body double, wearing the exact same outfit, looking just like him, will walk through the lobby. And
is that a security thing?
Of course, yeah.
Wow. Do they all do that? I have never heard that from any president or anyone.
There's a few who do that, but it's about the hotel being able to be able to keep that celebrity safe and private, and you know, bring them in through a back way that nobody else knows about.
So interesting, because I know that the Intercontinental in Sydney, if we're talking Sydney, is the most popular place generally for global politicians to stay, because they can actually get them out with the helicopter on the roof if there's an emergency. And I think it's also bomb-proof, I believe, that hotel. It's one of the only ones.
Yeah.
Totally different level of security and demands from politicians. Very interesting. And tell us about Katy Perry and your new business and how you ended up working with her, because obviously she had nothing to do with luxury hotels.
No, it was nothing to do with hotels. I think I was really lucky to be a big fish in a small pond in Singapore, in a way. So I have a friend who is working with a group called True Colours Festival. So they work with people with disabilities, and wasn't even about Katy Perry. It was about giving people with disabilities the opportunity to shine on a stage. And these performers were absolutely incredible. And so Audrey reached out and said she wanted someone to do the PR for Katy. This was a week out from me starting my own business, right? So 2 days in, I had a call about Mike Cannon-Brookes. And within a week, I had a call about working with Katy Perry. And
hang on. What did Michael Cannon-Brookes want from you?
So he was bringing solar energy from Australia to Singapore underneath the Indonesian Sea, right? And
as you do.
I mean, this is where you need forward thinkers, innovators, you know.
Yes.
But it was 2 days out. I'd worked with Accor for 20 years. I just wanted a little rest. I thought, okay, I'm going to have a week off or a couple of weeks off. And I got a call 2 days in. Can you join a call with Mike Cannon-Brookes in an hour? And I'll be honest, I was still in my jammies.
Did you know who he was? I mean, did you know what he did?
Yeah, no, I knew who he was because I'm Australian. But I, you know, that's a big call to get.
Yes.
And that's not hospitality. That's not hotels. And Katy Perry was the same. And I got to fly to Tokyo, organize her media interviews in Tokyo. Got to see how she was amazing. This was a concert, as I mentioned, for people with disabilities, but they were performers first and their disability was second. And she kept the media waiting because she said the stars of this show are these performers with a disability. She got a photo with everybody. She chatted with everybody. She was so down to earth, and she invited them all on the stage with her. And I actually had tears watching that. I was crying, just looking at how real she was. She was amazing. And in fact, I was wearing this jacket. I didn't plan this, but she complimented me on my jacket, and I was almost ready to give it to her. And I thought, Katy Perry doesn't need another hot pink jacket. But that's how you sort of fall in her spell, I guess. She was amazing.
Wow. And tell us about reputation management, because I know that is one of your many sort of skills and things that you do. How do you do that? And can you give us a story about, you know, how you've had to handle something in an extreme situation?
Yeah, look, I think for me, over 20 years in hotels, I've handled and managed crises from the Asian tsunami to the bushfire crisis in Australia to obviously the biggest one of the last few years is COVID.
Yes.
Right? So it's how do you manage your messaging around that? How do you keep on top of that? I was looking after 20 odd countries. So the message would change. By the time I crafted the message, the situation would change in whichever country, whether it be Japan, Singapore, China, Australia. But I worked with the bushfire crisis here in Australia, and we almost went straight from that into COVID. And again, whether it's reputation or crisis, it's all about consistent messaging. You have to say the same thing time and time again. And if you're trying to build your reputation, I think Warren Buffett said it takes you 20 years to build a reputation, 5 minutes to ruin it.
So
and in fact, I would say less than that in the social media age. you can ruin it in less than 5 minutes. So you have to know that everything you say and do builds up to that reputation. So if you're going to say, as I do, I stand for women, well, how do I prove that? I'm working with volunteering with an organization called the Equanimity Project, which helps homeless women find a place to live.
In
and
Australia?
In Australia. And so many women are victims of domestic abuse.
Yes.
And they're trying to escape that, or they've found themselves in situations where they're in a financial strain. They've relied on their husband. They haven't worked, so they don't have super, whatever it is. There are so many women in Australia who need a home. And there are many, many more women who have spare bedrooms in their homes, but they might be struggling to meet their mortgage. So the Equanimity Project puts them together.
That's fantastic.
So if I'm going to say I stand for women and I'm building a reputation on supporting and promoting women, I volunteer for that. So your actions have to show what your words say.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it's interesting in terms of the marketing messages that you're saying, because I know the current studies are showing that we have to be exposed to a message 14 times to even see it. And if you think about your own social media habits, on the Instagram, for example, it'll flash up the same. And that's why.
Yeah. And you have to, I'm working with a client now who's amazing, a woman called Mary Lee, who founded her own company. She's a serial entrepreneur, basically. So her second startup, she sold to Alibaba. So the biggest platform in China. She's a legend.
Is she Australian?
No, she's Chinese.
Wow.
She's Chinese. And she's just brilliant. She is so smart, one of the smartest women I've ever met, but she taught herself English, and I'm giving her some media training. And I sat with her a couple of weeks ago, one-on-one, and she told me her story. And I thought, how can I possibly teach this woman anything? She's amazing, but she didn't know the sort of rules to communicating with media. That for me is so easy to bring.
And also culturally, might I say, having lived in Asia myself, even culturally, the way one communicates is quite drastically different, let alone on a media platform.
Yes. And I think obviously in China, you're taught to be very humble. You're not allowed to say you're the best. You cannot say you're the best unless you can prove it. So when I was telling Mary she should say that she's the best at XYZ, she said, oh, no, we can't say that. But it's fascinating because it doesn't matter the company or where you're from. It's the rule of repeating the same message, but saying it differently. And you have to have proof points. You can't say you're the best unless you can prove why you're the best at whatever it is you think you're the best at.
It's so simple a concept.
Yeah.
And really quite simple to execute.
I think just watch Atlas. This is another company and another woman founder who's really, really living what she says.
Wow. And that's her company, is it? The one you were talking about?
Atlas.
And what does she do? What does the company do?
Well, it's basically she spent 2 years traveling the world, and she wanted to make travel accessible. She thought travel should not be just for the wealthy. So her whole focus is on low-cost carriers, and she has a platform that actually brings the world's low-cost carriers together, because often low-cost carriers are in sort of remote regions. They can't reach the world. She helps them reach the world.
How fantastic. Must be a challenge in Australia, let's be honest, with the challenges any airline faces coming in here. But it's a great
that's very timely at the moment with what's happening. Yeah.
Yes. But actually, just on that note, though, there are ways around that, as you would know, I'm sure, because having lived in Asia for both of us, you just get out of here and fly to Asia, and then you've got access to all those low-cost carriers. You just don't book it from here direct because you can't access them.
That's right.
There are ways around it. I'm sure that's what she's promoting, which is wonderful. It's great. And you were voted the 2020 Communicator of the Year by the British and Australian Travel Writers Guild. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And how did that happen? I mean, was that in terms of your media writing, in terms of your PR career?
So it's basically, I am very lucky. I work with an organization called Trav Media. I'm sure you're familiar with them. And they are a platform that connects travel PRs with travel writers the world over. And through that, I used to go to IMMs in London, Paris, New York, Singapore, Sydney, Berlin, all of them. And so I managed to meet media from all around the world. The competition was run. You had to actually put forward a campaign that you had done. And I was very, very lucky to have been chosen.
Oh, congratulations.
And, very, very humbling. But it's, to me, it comes back to everything I do is about media relations. It's about knowing the media I work with. It's not just about sending them a press release. I want to know who they are, what they need, how I can help them do their job.
Yes. Yeah.
And through that, I can sell them, not sell them, but give them my client stories.
It's actually old school PR, what you're describing, and
Old
everyone's
school. And
lost
I
their
am old
way.
school. Look at me.
No, but people have lost their way in the industry. A lot of people have forgotten the very things that you're talking about. And, I get so many approaches in my capacity with my media career from people who don't know who I am. They don't know that I've lived in Asia. They haven't read anything. And again, it's like, how can they understand my audience or who I am or where I'm coming from if they don't invest 10 minutes at least in understanding something, let alone in meeting with me and then understanding, who I am and what I sort of stand for, if you like. So again, makes sense. Now, but what I want to know from you personally, when you travel, where do you like to travel? Is it in luxury?
I should say Asia. I should say Australia, because that's where my clients are. But actually, my heart is in Europe. And so if I can go to Europe, I'm always happy. My most recent visits in Europe were to Portugal and Croatia. I go to Singapore every month. I travel around Australia. I've been to every state and territory in Australia. But there's something about Europe. I don't know. It's the history, the heritage, the variety of landscapes, the difference in country. And of course, you get that in Asia too. But yeah.
No, 100%. And how would you compare luxury hotels in Southeast Asia to Europe?
It's interesting because I think on a global scale, people talk about luxury hotels and they think of America and they think of Europe. But actually, having lived in Asia, and I hope you would say the same, Asia's leading the way in luxury.
Yes.
It's where you are building new hotels. You have the technology. One of the greatest things the Asian countries do is introduce tech much more quickly than you can in a legacy property. So rooms are bigger. You have more staff looking after you because obviously wages are cheaper. You have more bling, but I think also there's so much pride in so many Asian countries with sharing their culture. So if you go to Indonesia, you go to India, you go to Myanmar, wherever you go, the locals really want to share their culture with you. And the hotels are spectacular. Some of the hotels being built now in Asia are just next level. And you won't find that in Asia. You won't find that in Europe. You won't find it in America because they're already built. They're already a mature market. There's not new places and new markets opening up.
But also, might I say, the cost of staff acquisition and retaining staff is so drastically different in countries like Indonesia and Thailand compared to the States.
And so you can have 5 staff versus 2 staff for the same price.
Yes. So, and that's where Australia really struggles, because the cost of staff is just so high that they just can't have the numbers that they need to really run a luxury hotel in the way that it needs to be run. And then you go to Asia and it's just the complete opposite. I mean
it's laid out with a red carpet. And I've had moments where I've had so many people looking after me, it's a little embarrassing. Or I've had a butler who's following me around and I'm almost paying them not to follow me around because I don't necessarily want that. But it's so genuine, the service that you get in these Asian countries.
No, it really is.
It's from the heart.
It really is. And can you tell us about some of your favorite luxury hotels around the world, perhaps in Europe?
I don't know about Europe so much, but one of my favorite properties that I go back to time and time again, obviously living in Singapore for 10 years, was the Sofitel Bali, Nusa Dua. And it's not even that it's the most spectacular property, but I think they have the best team, the most heartfelt, amazing team. They have incredible F&B experiences. It's just, I feel like family when I go there. And that to me is what luxury is about. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about the hardware of the property, because the hardware is, it can wear down, it can get a bit old, whatever. But if you have a heartfelt greeting, that is a property that every time I go, I hug almost every staff member.
That's so lovely. And Europe, what are your favorites in Europe?
Oh, there's too many, because in Europe we tend to, I hate to say this as someone who works in hotels, but I tend to stay at Airbnbs in Europe because hotel rooms are small in Europe. So if I'm traveling with my daughter and my husband and you stay in a room in Paris, it's going to be the size of a dining room table, perhaps.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes, no, I understand that. I understand. Well, it was wonderful to speak with you. I'm seeing you in a few days in Singapore, which will be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
We ask all of our guests where to from here for you. So it might be where you're going today, where you're going on your next trip.
Okay. So where to for me? I'm obviously in Singapore every month, but I'm actually flying to Singapore on Friday for International Media Marketplace, which I know you're coming to. And I think honestly, any of your audience who's watching who works in travel PR or travel brands, it is the one place to go. I talked about it earlier. It's the one show that I never miss. So I'm very excited you're joining us this year, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Fantastic, Gaynor. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. See you in Singapore.
Right now. Don't forget to subscribe here and follow us on Instagram and Facebook for regular travel updates. You can also hear our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.